Well, hi, Letitia. Welcome to Marijuana, Compassion, and Common Sense. It's great to have you here on the show.
Hi, Lanny.
You know, you were very much involved in the San Bernardino County. You actually live in San Bernardino County, don't you?
Oh, God help me, no.
Oh, okay. I thought you did. But the San Bernardino County ordinance is really a horrid ordinance. You want to explain to our viewers why it's such a bad ordinance?
Yeah, but first, let me congratulate you on all the efforts you've made over the years, and you were able to get so many people to come to that hearing in front of the Planning Commission. It was very impressive. Here's the important stuff about the ordinance. The Planning Commission went ahead, they stopped what they were doing, they heard everything and they worried, and then they had a continuance of 2 weeks, which gives the sheriff, who's behind this, and the other minions who want medical marijuana to be out of the picture. That gave them time, I think, to work on the Planning Commission. So they came back and they voted 100% in favor, and they sent it to the Board of Supervisors, who is going to approve it. And here's why you don't want that to happen. Now we get to the part that, and let me tell you, this law is extremely illegal and unconstitutional. What it does is it defines a medical marijuana dispensary. Now we all know what that is. That's a place where you can go and you can get medical marijuana if you've got your recommendation, your ID. Okay? No, they've defined a medical marijuana dispensary as 3 or more patients, qualified patients, people with cards and all, or not with cards, anyway, patients and caregivers, 3 or more of them together anywhere. Stationary or mobile, in other words, a car is fine. Anywhere could be inside your house.
It's sort of like the gang thing, which is
Yeah.
you can't have more than 3 people hanging out on a street corner. So if you're a medical marijuana patient, 3 of you better not hang out on a street corner in downtown San Bernardino, because that will be illegal.
Hey, we're worse than the gang because they can at least go in their house and hang out. But if you're in your house with 2 other people using medical marijuana or even in possession of it, you are a medical marijuana dispensary and you are banned. You are not, it's like, you know, we ban things, we banish people. So basically it's a banishment of medical marijuana patients if you dare to associate. That's why this law is really, 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 you know, from the attorney's point of view, if someone's going to adopt a law that you don't like, pray that they adopt one that's super, super bad, because it's so much more fun to fight them on it. This is a super bad law because you have a First Amendment right, not only of freedom of speech, so you can go to these meetings and tell them what you think, you also have a right to associate, you know, the freedom to associate, because the Founding Fathers knew that groups of people getting together to talk and build up their feelings together are very powerful. That's why what has happened in the Middle East has been happening. It's groups of people deprived of the internet for a few days who turned out in big numbers and did that. So our Founding Fathers, having seen the power for good, and from their point of view, the foundation of a democracy or a republic, made sure that people had the right to associate. It's right up there with the right to speech. They're in the same amendment, speech and association, and the county ordinance totally violates that because it says that 3 people cannot get together to do something illegal. You're banned. They defined you as something that they banned, and since you're a person, you're banished under this law.
But of course, the major thrust is going to be for the large-scale collectives that sell, and then that's what makes it so difficult, because most patients are going to need to not take advantage of a 5-member collective. They've got to go to collectives that have thousands of members.
I didn't even talk about that because obviously they're easier to find, the big ones, but that's why the law is illegal, because of how they defined it, okay? But in terms, we all know people need the dispensaries, and you could get in some great people on this program who could give you great stories about why access is impossible for them without a dispensary.
Okay, Letitia, you were talking about Attorney Steve Perez had some questions. What were these questions, and what are the answers?
Well, not surprisingly, his question for me about what was the ordinance going to do was, were there any criminal penalties, because he does criminal defense? And I said, you know what? That's an interesting question. I didn't even look for the criminal penalties because I was so offended at the substance of the law and so excited by how wildly and happily illegal it is. So I got in and looked at it. And actually, I'm not surprised, because I suspected this is what it was going to be. This is very common. What this land use ordinance does is it says that a medical marijuana dispensary, defined unfortunately include 3 people, but certainly to include places that are on the ground and easy to find, that there's no place allowed for them in the zoning code. So there's no place legally they can be. Even though you're not doing anything wrong under the law, if you're in a place you're not allowed to be, they're not doing anything wrong, but you're in a place that's not zoned for it, you become a public nuisance, and they define it as a public nuisance. And the public nuisances, they have incredible power. as they say, their enforcement remedies are cumulative and discretionary, not exclusive. So they are allowed to come after you criminally, civilly, administratively, and all three together.
So what kind of charges criminally would they file against a medical marijuana collective that has?
Well, every violation of the development code can be prosecuted as an infraction, and then it's punished by a first fine of $100, then $200, and then after that, if you keep doing it, $500 per violation. So every time you got together with two of your friends with some marijuana, if they wanted to bust you, the fines would go up, and the same for you guys. But now it gets better, okay, because that is if they decide to charge it as an infraction. But it also says, isn't this interesting, notwithstanding the above, a first or subsequent violation of the development code may be charged and prosecuted as a misdemeanor. So they have awesome power. They can charge it as an infraction or a misdemeanor, and if they decide to go after you as a misdemeanor, the fine begins at $500 and then goes to $1,000 between, or imprisonment in the county jail for a period of not more than 6 months, or both the fine and imprisonment. And then they also make you pay their court costs. So, in other words, this law, they're treating it like any other public nuisance, but you know, they have a lot more, let's say, shall I say, bad feelings, I think, towards medical marijuana dispensaries.
Here's the thing. It's not a public nuisance, and the reason it's not a public nuisance is because state law allows it, and state law says if state law allows something, it's automatically not a public nuisance. What we've got here is the counties and the cities that have passed these bans describing marijuana as a public nuisance are violating the law. These counties are all in violation of the law, and that's why we got some lawsuits. But the problem is, until we win these lawsuits in court, they go right ahead with what they're doing, passing these horrid ordinances. It's scaring the hell out of people.
I know, and let me just explain. I know that what dispensaries are doing is not a public nuisance. And a long time ago I said, as long as Prop 19 doesn't pass and the law stays the same as it is, we are going to win this fight. They can't ban these things because they're protected under 215. But what I'm talking about is their definition. In other words, to tell people, you better come out and fight this hard, because if it passes and it isn't challenged in court, then this is what's going to happen. We'll have the right to define this stuff as a public nuisance, and here's what they can charge people for.
There's another big problem with this ordinance, and that it bans outdoor growing.
Oh, I know there are a lot of problems, and I turned in. Let me tell people, if you go on the internet and you do a Google search, San Bernardino County Planning Commission website, and then get to their website, and then look up their agendas. That's down near the bottom of the page, and you can get the agenda for February 3rd, that's the first hearing they did, then February 17th, which was the second hearing. Now, you can see the wording of the ordinance here, but also what's even better is you can see the public comments that people sent in. How this works is, what the county's doing now is they put in a really rotten evidence about why they need to do it, and we're putting in really good evidence about why they can't ban dispensaries. Practically, it's the facts. This is going to make it more unaffordable for people to get marijuana. It's going to make it more difficult. It's going to impair the safety of their access. And we all need you guys to write stories about your experiences, about how your life is going to be if you can't go to a dispensary to get your medicine, okay? And you can turn this in writing, and it becomes part of the testimony. These guys, unfortunately, they don't care. We had wonderful testimony, and they don't care because their minds are made up. But then when they get sued, your words are things that 3 judges and a bunch of research attorneys read. They read it, and it affects them as they look and say, does this law actually prevent people from having safe access? What is it? What are people's real life experience? Can they get medicine easily? You know, these people, the Planning Commission believes that you can go to a state licensed facility like a hospice place and have them give you marijuana. These people are totally clueless. That's why people who have no experience with this, they need to read the words of real human beings who have real experiences. And now, when you're writing those letters, you can also add a word in about what the part I'm finally trying to get to, Lanny, which is the outdoor cultivation. Would you like to say a word before I say more?
About the outdoor cultivation?
About any of it, yeah.
Well, the outdoor cultivation, they ban outdoor cultivation. You cannot grow outdoors, so you have to grow indoors. So that means it becomes very expensive and more difficult. It's relatively easy to grow outdoors compared to growing indoors. You have lights and timers and all kinds of nutrients. It's very difficult. And so they're doing that. Of course, that's not environmentally sound. because here people are using the sun for free, but no, they want to take it in where we're going to have to use electricity, more greenhouse gases and all that kind of stuff. So it's completely, absolutely insane. However, after the meeting went over, they'd say, you know, one of the mayors said, you can have a greenhouse. You can have a greenhouse. So after the meeting, I went up to the county council guy and I said, hey, what's a greenhouse? I mean, is it a piece of plastic? He says, oh no. He says, it says right here what it has to be. There's nothing that defines what a greenhouse is. But what they define is what a structure is.
A structure.
And it says it's 4 solid walls with a roof and a securely locked door. So I says, well, I asked him, I said, if we put a little structure up and put some plastic around it, is that a greenhouse? You know what he says to me?
Right.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
We're going to have to let the courts decide that. So that means some patient is going to get arrested, in order to find out what is it. I mean, they won't even tell us. This is the evilness of San Bernardino County.
Oh, I know.
There is no county in the state of California that is as corrupt and as evil as San Bernardino County, and this particular ordinance just underscores just the total. I mean, evil doesn't even describe what these people are. They're unbelievable.
That's definitely true, that this is going to lead to a lot more litigation, and not just arrested. You can be fined $1,000 a day if they don't like your greenhouse. Related to the cultivation, actually, if you go to that website and you look at the backup materials, if you look at agenda item number 5, actually look on the February 17th agenda of this year and look at item.
It was item 5.
Item 5, and you can click on it but anyway, I've turned in a lot of people turned in good comments, but turn in comments, and if you can turn in letters about how cultivation if outdoor is the only way you're allowed to do it, you won't be able to do it at all, and why, explain why. Okay, look at the whole thing and just say how this is going to hurt access.
Well, you're absolutely right. One of the most important things is to write letters and get involved. It's when patients get out there. We had almost 100 people at that February 3rd meeting. Those people that got the Planning Commission to at least delay it for 2 weeks. They were going to just rubber stamp it, and they delayed it for 3 weeks. And listen, Teresa, we've got to wrap the show.
I should say that isn't all they did, though. They didn't just delay it. They put in good testimony, good evidence.
Oh yeah, everything.
Court case.
That's why you want to submit letters, because that's what builds up your court case. Well, Letitia, listen, thank you so much for coming down to the show and kind of explaining about the ordinance, and really, thank you very much for explaining how people need to get involved, because that is the real key to our success. Thank you.
You're welcome.